Now that we've talked about perimeter and circumference, measuring the edge of a polygon or circle, today's lesson 9-3 is going to be covering the area. And so the area is focused on covering the inside of the shape. In other words, how many square units are going to fit inside of the shape that you're given. Think about tiles. If you were going to, say for some reason we needed to build a fence around the hallway. You guys were just being too rowdy in the hall. We needed to build a fence around it to keep you in. Well, that fence would be measuring the perimeter of the hallway. Didn't even want you to get in your lockers. We needed a fence. Now, if we wanted to talk about how many tiles were going to be covering the hallway, that would be area because you're covering the floor or the surface of the hallway. To find the area of, rectangles, you can actually take length times width. You should remember that from last year. We're going to go ahead and try example 1, and then I'm going to have you do example 2 on your own. So to find the area of this rectangle, I'm going to do 9 times 7, length times width, to get 63. Do not forget that your unit this time will be yards squared because you're taking 2 dimensions. If I think about it, it's actually 9 yards times 7 yards. And if I move this around, that would be 9 times 7 times yards times yards. That's the commutative property. Well, if I do 9 times 7, that's 63. But yards times yards, that's the same thing repeated twice by multiplication. So that's yards squared. Area has the squared unit. Go ahead and do number 2 on your own. This will be part of your notes grade. Good luck. One thing I wanted to talk about really quick about finding the area is that of the rectangle is that we have length times width. And you'll notice that the width here has this little right angle. This right angle represents the height of my rectangle. And 9 yards represents the base. This is what it's sitting on. One way that you could write the area of a rectangle is to take the base times the height. It's just that your base happens to be your length and your height happens to be your width. We can use length and width because the height of my rectangle is also a side of my rectangle. Keep that in mind because the area of a parallelogram, you are going to find the area by taking base times height, which is really the same thing as finding the area of a rectangle. It's just that the base is not a side of a parallelogram as the height is a side in the rectangle. So here my height is a side. In a parallelogram it is not. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Alright, so I have 2 parallelograms here and I need to remember to find my area. I'm going to do area equals base times height. Sometimes problems will have a distracting number. For example, if I did, I'm going to make something up, 6 yards. Even though this is a side of my parallelogram, it's not the same as finding the area of a rectangle when I multiply 8 times 6. I might multiply those 2 sides. The reason is because I need my base and my height. So I would actually erase that number or cross it out if that side were given on a parallelogram because it's meant to confuse you. What you need to pay attention to is the height of that parallelogram. In other words, how tall it is. And you can't really measure tall or height when you're slanted. So you have to drop a perpendicular down, and perpendicular means a line that forms a 90-degree angle. So see that right angle? That signifies that that is the height of my shape. If you think about it, this forms a little chair. And I could even draw a little dude. Of course, it's a stick figure. Sitting in the chair saying, hey, cool, I'm around. I'm sitting in this parallelogram, and it's pretty cool. Now, you'll notice that his feet are sitting on the ground, and the ground is the base. That's the base of the chair. So that's the base. Now the back of the chair is what causes them to stand up tall. And you measure tall in height. In other words, 4 yards is my height, and base is 8 yards. So when I'm finding the area of this parallelogram, I'm going to take 8 times 4, which is 32. And don't you dare forget that the unit on area is always the unit squared, so 32 yards squared. Give number 4 a try on your own. That's the last problem you need to do for your homework, and we will check it tomorrow, or actually, when we get back in class. Don't forget to do this, otherwise you'll have incomplete notes. Good luck!